So therefore,
So
it
you
would
can't
probably
look at that and go ahead. Go ahead,
You can still have a shoe without knowing what the shoe's essence is. You can have a shoe made out of cow leather or human leather. You could have a shoe made out of a synthetic fiber, so you could still know that
Or
it's a shoe,
sheep
but still
leather.
not know everything about it. What's up?
Or
yeah,
sheep leather.
fist bump to the lemon. Thank you for that, lemon.
Okay, Stacy, what is this?
What is what?
What is this shoe
Sorry,
made of?
in here.
What is this shoe made of?
Depends on what shoe you're talking about. What shoe's in front
I
of
want
me?
you to
What
know
it's
this
made
shoe.
of?
What's it made of?
If you're
In
gonna
the
make
chat,
different
there
things,
is the shoe.
At this point,
At
I don't know.
11:29.
I have to go and look at the label inside. It'll tell me it's made out of pleather. It's made out of thick.
Or what it's made
well,
of.
you can
We know
also
who made it.
experience it, touch it, feel it, go through it, and literally dissect what it's made of. Correct? Can you not?
Oh, you
Yeah,
can't
that's
always
our
know.
experiment.
So there's a complete understanding of what that shoe is made of. Correct?
Yeah. So but that's the experiment
So
part.
it's not a
of it, Stacey.
phenomenon.
No, but Stacey, that's the experimental part, isn't it? So the observation is we have a shoe. The hypothesis is we think it's made of leather. And then we go and do the examination to then determine whether our hypothesis is true or false.
Okay, I can change it a little bit. I found a shoe that somebody's been wearing for 10,000 miles. That's unusual. That's a phenomenal lifespan for a shoe, but I don't know how they made this shoe.
How do you
Now I
know
can go and
somebody's done that for 10,000 miles? How do you know?
It's well documented. There was video footage of it all day long, every day for 10 years.
Okay, right. If that was the case, then you could say that, right?
Well, that goes for any aspect of the shoe. The shoelaces, what are they made of? If I just want to know something, I can go and look at it and find out. There's no
It's not a scientific
reason.
experiment.
But
It can be.
No, that's observation. Scientific experiments are of the natural world. That's not natural.
Yeah.
That's not
Man
true.
made it.
That's
Rakia,
quantum
there are two
erasers lie.
criteria.
Quantum
You have to
erasers
know the
lie.
cause.
Yeah.
Quantum eraser
there are two,
lies.
right.
there are two criteria in science, Rakia. That is supernatural and natural. Those are the only two categories in science. Yeah.
But the thing
So
is,
one
we
second,
don't
just want
know
to finish this.
Yeah.
Just want to finish this, Lemon. So, if you're saying that you can't test a shoe, you are literally saying that shoes are supernatural. Is that what you're saying, Rakia?
You're putting words in my mouth. We know they're not
No,
supernatural.
I'm-
We know they're
I'm-
made of natural substances. We can tell what they're made
Cool.
out of. All we got to do is observe that.
Right.
It's not a
No,
scientific
you can't.
experiment.
You can't
It's
tell what
made
something's
by
made out of just by
man.
looking at. You can't tell what something's made out of just by looking at it all the time.
Well, you can test that, but that's not a scientific experiment.
Testing is science. That's science.
I
Testing.
didn't say it wasn't science
well,
or doing
An
science.
experiment
It's
and
not
test are the same thing as a scientific experiment. Incorrect.
Yes. No,
Y'all
they are the
lost y'all
same.
marbles.
Don't you
Experiment
have?
is a test.
Are y'all trying to defend Brenda's shoe? Is that what y'all are
But
trying to
you
do?
have a
Are
point,
y'all
though.
that
But the
thick?
thing is, we only know a thing by revelation. God would have to tell us what it
Oh,
is, like He
fuck
did with
me.
Adam
Just
and Eve
get
in the
this
garden.
fucking piece of
But
shit
short
outta
of
here.
revelation, this is the point. Short of revelation to tell you what a thing is, and the spiritual world for the mysteries of what we don't know or what hasn't been revealed to us, we have a philosophical paradigm in science where we have a shoe, and we say that it is a shoe-like thing based off of the activities that are flowing from the thing's essence. If it is a shoe, you should be able to put it on your foot in the current paradigm and walk around with it, whether it's human leather, cow leather, synthetic, whatever. It is a shoe because of the activities that are flowing off of its essence. That is the essence of science currently, without divine revelation to tell you what is or is not a thing.
We can't have divine revelation in science because, by definition, divine revelation is supernatural.
But a new problem comes in because now we're assuming that certain activities are flowing off of this thing. The sun is physical because physical activities like warming my physical skin are flowing off of it. That may be induction and begging the question. It is a good philosophy and it gives good science sometimes, but it's still induction and begging the question.
Induction
So short
doesn't
of an
beg the
authority
question.
like God revealing what it is, it could still be a problem either way.
Induction does not beg the question. You're a moron.
Yeah.
Induction begs the question by
No.
gathering a bunch of observations and assuming that the observations are enough to get at an inductive, generalized.
If it's begging the question, can you show me where the premise is where the answer is always contained in the premise?
Basically, shoes are worn on the feet. This thing is worn on the foot, therefore it is some sort of shoe. I could put a fish on my
I
foot.
wear my shoes
And
on
it
my
would
hands.
not be
That's not begging
it
the
would not be
question.
Yeah, that's
That's
not
an
begging
would
the
not
question.
be
Yeah, that's an
accepted as a
attribute.
shoe. Yeah,
That's an
fish.
attribute. That's an attribute of the object we're discussing. Attributes not begging the question. Those are attributes we've assigned. So yes, I agree. When we have a shoe, generally we wear shoes on our feet. That is the most common place we see shoes worn. It's an attribute we assign to shoes. They are things
Are
that cover our
sandals
feet to protect
are
them.
sandals
Induction
shoes?
induction is the heart of science, and
Lemon.
induction is begging the question, so it
No, it
will be
isn't,
somewhat
Lemon. You're
fallacious.
wrong. Shut up about that nonsense. You're wrong. Induction doesn't beg the question. You don't know jack shit what you're talking about.
See, I expected him to go
Induction
down
is
the.
basically taking a bunch of observations and making a best guess. But
And
a
that's
lot of times
not
when you
begging
do
the
the inductive
question.
analysis,
Moron. That's not begging the question, moron. Now shut up.
Okay, Brenda,
But-
instead
but a lot of
of
times-
being mean right now, honey, can you just explain
Yeah,
why
if
it's
you
not begging
if
the
you
question?
can, like for
If it's
example,
demanding
Lemon,
it's not?
if you consistently see somebody eat something that poisons them and kills them, then you can use induction to assume that any human being on the planet that eats it is going to die. Okay, that's
Exactly.
induction right there. That's
Yeah,
not
and that
begging
is
the
good
question
induction.
because you have evidence. Because everyone that you've seen eat it has died from it. Okay,
But it
that's
could be
not begging the question because there's evidence for it. Begging the question is if there's no evidence to assume the
No,
conclusion.
begging the question is where your conclusion is in the premise. That is begging the question fallacy. Okay, that's
it
why
could be-
what Lemon is talking about is not begging the question. I expected him to go back to the axiomatic roots of people's philosophical justification and try and claim that an axiom means you're begging the question. But an axiom would only be begging the question if we tried to justify the axiom. If we
But the
justify
thing
an axiom, then it's no longer an axiom, it's a presupposition.
But the thing is, that is correct. But the thing is, if you're starting out saying something's killing this person, you're begging the question because you're trying to see what, if any, correlations in this
No.
person's activity is causing them to die. And if you see
Yeah,
them
none of
eating this
that is begging
mushroom,
the
you may
question.
beg the question and say, this mushroom is what's killing them, when it
None
may
of
be
that.
an allergic reaction. When, a CIA
still-
agent may have
that's still
sidled
not
up to
begging
them
the-
and
that's still
injected
not
them
begging the
with,
question.
something while they were eating this mushroom. It's still kind of begging the question. I would say it's high
not.
quality induction, yes, but it could
It's
still be
not.
begging the question.
You move from it is to it could be to it might be. It's still not begging the question because to beg the question, the conclusion needs to be in your premise. Yeah. So
Yeah, and the
so
conclusion
let's
in your
take
premise is
let's
something
take
killing this person.
let's take the food example. I have an observation. When people eat this thing, they seem to die. And you actually brought in exactly the thing, which was, why we hold things tentatively rather than make assertions based off the results. We can falsify categorically, and we can verify tentatively. So that's why I thought, brilliant, you brought in that example, because I was going to use, actually, everybody that we've seen has been eating peanuts, and funny enough, everybody that ate those peanuts has got a peanut allergy. So to infer that it would affect the whole population would be wrong, but what we've done now is we've falsified it kills everybody, and we've now rationalised the best inference, which is it seems to be people with peanut allergies that die when they eat peanuts if they don't get any help.
Hey, Floyd.
Right.
Hey, Foolish. I would also like to add, just because it's on your foot doesn't mean it's a shoe. I mean, there's flip-flops, there's sandals. They're by definition.
I was just thinking footwear. I was being generous rather than being that pedantic.
Yeah.
But bringing it back to the food thing, I mean, imagine that you're stranded on an island with a group of people, right? And there's not much food on the island, and you guys find some berry growing on a tree or a bush of the island, and you guys are so hungry, some people eat the berries, and then all those people that ate the berries die. Now,
This is where I really
it would be reasonable to use induction to say, okay, we shouldn't eat that berry because it's probably poisonous.
So
And that would be a pretty smart thing to do, as opposed to say, well, maybe just those people that ate it had a specific allergy to it. I'm going to
But
try to
you're
eat
still
it
begging the
too.
question because you don't know.
Nobody
Is
ever
that true?
knows.
We don't know
That's
with
the
100%
problem.
certainty, but we've got
Right,
good
right.
evidence that it's poisonous to people, and
But
it would
you still
not be
have to say you're
fallacious
begging the
to
question,
assume.
correct?
No, you don't, because begging the question would be assuming the
Right.
conclusion in the question you're asking.
Correct.
that-
So the
that's
berries
what-
are being ate, and you're concluding, without further testing, that someone's dying of that, based on the observation that you're seeing. But in reality, if it was questioned a little longer, right, and went and did some research on it, might be something else.
Yeah, but that's still not. So that wouldn't be begging the question. That would be verification versus falsification. So tentative, yes, we think we've got an answer. To, oh no, that's not the answer.
Which is virtually all of science.
And I think begging the question is not necessarily, I mean, just because something's a fallacy doesn't mean it's not true. It's just that, it would be nice if we could show a really satisfactory mechanism to show the most linkage
hey,
possible,
Lemon?
being limited humans that are not God.
Lemon, could you give me an example of a fallacy that is true?
Yeah. Begging the question is a fallacy because you need to show the mechanism, sometimes even further than that.
No,
Like saying that they ate these berries and died, it's a pretty good, observation. But maybe if we combine those berries with, a little bit of juice or another food, it's no longer poisonous. So at that point, the berry's not poisonous anymore. It would be poisonous.
A great example anthropologically for that would be tubers. So there are an awful lot of tubers that you have to chew to get the shit out of it, which is poisonous, before you can cook it and eat it, or you have to wash it multiple times. And that's something we see. So there's a whole lot of food that we consume as humans that if we just ate the raw tuber, it would make us very sick and potentially kill us. Once we've processed it, it doesn't. So that again is a good example of where you're going down that route. It's still not begging the question, and really begging the question doesn't matter. It's an informal fallacy. It's not a major big one. It's the same way as an infinite regression is an informal fallacy. It's not a big one.
Well, isn't like cancer the same thing too? And I'm just asking, like, someone finds a tumor in my brother's brain, like I said, and they beg the question, look, it could be cancer. They say it's cancer. Oh, right, because there's a tumor in the brain that's killing. But what if it wasn't? They wouldn't know.
Well,
You're begging the question that it is.
Well, no, because they'll always say that there are two types of tumours you get: malignant, which is cancerous, and non-malignant, which is non-cancerous.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the first thing that I'll say. If we
By the way,
found
non-cancerous tumors can still kill you.
No,
Yeah, absolutely.
Tumor just means mass.
Yeah.
Cancer is assumed to be
malignant.
Benign or malignant?
No. See, benign or malignant has nothing to do with whether or not it's cancer. You can have a benign cancer.
Oh, carry on. I'm learning something, Brad.
Well, Brenda, you were asking about a fallacy that could be true, or that could be true, even though it's fallacious. Well, I guess I'd go with a fallacy that's actually false in this case, with the idea that people are dying from some sort of disease, because we have the germ theory. We're going to start begging some questions about the germ theory. We're going to say, if this specific group of isolated people start dying, there has to be some sort of bug or something inside of them that's making them die. We see these people, have, I don't know, bacteria or viruses inside of them, that's different than other people. We may beg the question and say this different thing is what's making them die, when those bacteria and viruses may be triggered by something else. It may not be the viruses and bacteria by the germ theory that's killing them, but maybe they're triggered by, say, electromagnetic stress from something outside of our paradigm that we haven't, begged yet as the answer to our question. So that can be a little.
Lemon, can you clarify?
Viruses and bacteria are in there, but it may not be what's actually killing them. It could be a trigger.
Yeah, that was total
Lemon, just
gibberish.
clear up this one thing. What do you mean when you say begging the question?
He has no idea, Curved. He has no idea.
I want him to say what he thinks it means.
Well, begging the question in this case says there has to be something inside of these people killing them. There is something in them, viruses and bacteria, before they die.
Right.
I'm going to beg the question and say that this correlation is germ theory causation of their death by viruses and bacteria, when there may be something outside of that, the trigger, the environmental trigger, triggering secondarily the bacteria and viruses.
The question, okay? I'm begging you to answer the question. What
He just
is
did.
begging
I
the
understood
question
it.
to you? Don't give me an example.
Begging the question is
define it. What is begging the question mean?
Define it? Okay, well, let's define it. You have a paradigm that you work from. You say that this germ theory that you're coming from is the best explanation for all the phenomena that you're going to see. So you're going to start begging the question related to the germ theory. If you haven't been exposed to environmental triggers, or another way to look at the problem.
Okay, is this impossible for you to do? You can say so.
You're gonna beg the question from that paradigm. It's just human. We're gonna do it. We're gonna beg the question from the paradigm that's been brought up.
This has got to be deliberate. This is a deliberate troll.
No. It's the same thing with cancer. Like if my brother, like how he died of cancer, you can beg the question that it was the food that killed him and caused the cancer, or was something else that caused the cancer. It could be. Would you please stop? I'm explaining, if you listen, my definition. Well, if you talk, you won't hear, honey. Okay. For instance, they find a tumor. And they beg the question of how my brother got that tumor. Oh, he got cancer because of what? Maybe something he had in his ear, using Bluetooth too much. Or maybe it was literally some food he was eating. Maybe it was a lot of different things. Heavy metals built up in his body. You're begging the question that how that person got the tumor.
Oh, that's a separate question. He still has cancer.
I want to ask Curve the question.
But that's not the point.
I want to ask
If you claim it's from something without doing and knowing and further research, you're begging the question.
I want to ask Curve. I want to ask Curve the question. Curved, do you have any spare cyanide, please? I'm done. Please.
Really?
Stacy, I don't understand, Stacy. So there's two questions there. You asked the second question after the first one. Does your brother have cancer? Yes. No questions asked. Is that cancer dangerous? Is it a
you're first begging the question, and you have to actually go into his brain. Wait.
No, I'm not done yet.
You have to go into the brain.
Stacy, I wasn't quite done, dude.
Incorrect.
Always Stacy's turn to talk.
So now you have the second part, which is how did he get cancer? Now that's something that's going to be a little harder to track down, but maybe it was Bluetooth, maybe it was a cell phone, maybe it was the energy drinks he drank every day. Don't know, but he still had cancer.
Well, you don't know that until you open up the brain. That's what they have to do. They find the tumor. They're begging the question. The doctor came to us and said, okay, we believe it is because it looks like it's cancerous. But we will not know until we get the test back.
Right.
So therefore, they're begging the question that, first of all, that it is cancer, telling us it's cancer from the get-go. When it comes back to results it's cancer is when we know. But in the beginning, when they do the scan and they find a tumor, they don't know if it's cancer.
They didn't say it was cancer. They said we have to do more tests. You just described that to me.
Wait, they are questioning, is it? There's the first one. They're begging the question, is it cancer or is it not?
It's not.
They're assuming.
That's asking the question.
Yeah.
No, they were assuming.
Wait, Stacy, what you don't understand is that begging the question is not forming a differential diagnosis. Forming a differential diagnosis is using the evidence available to create a list of things that are most likely to be the case that is causing the problems associated with everything else. It's not begging the question. That is forming a list.
But if you state it's from a specific thing, then you're begging the question is my point. If you state that it's cancer, if you state that my brother got cancer from food, it would be begging the question because you don't know that. That's what I'm saying.
Nobody, until you know what the cancer is, you can't really make much in the way of judgment on exactly what caused it.
Right. But I'm saying if somebody was to, you're not listening. If they were to say it's from, hey, because you ate too much corn, genetically modified corn, you don't know that. Right.
They said he had cancer. That's all doctors will say.
Yeah.
You're not getting it. My point was I was using an explanation and trying to give it to you. Like if that was to happen and they would say it's from corn, right? Then they're begging the question because they don't know it's from corn.
Why are you setting up a scenario that is using a real?
I'm giving you an exact scenario that begging the question would work in. So okay, my brother, let's just say they said it was from corn, right? Genetically modified corn, that's how you get cancer. What if they had said that? Would that not be begging the question?
The question would be implying that there is something else we got to look into that we're not quite willing to look into. Like a correlation between vaccines and the rise in autism, but people begging the question and saying vaccines are, healthy. Therefore, we're not going to look into vaccines as the cause of this autism. We're going to beg the answer with the question and say that it has to be something other than the vaccines.
That's called making an assumption. That's not begging the question.
This is physically painful.
Begging the question is where the conclusion is in the premise. If the conclusion is not in the premise, then it's not begging the question.
Foolish. This is physically painful. This is physically painful.
But the conclusion was the premise that it couldn't be vaccines. So it is kind of begging the question.
I get what you're saying.
I thought, God bless it.
I want to
When I got
both.
in here, I thought Lemon was the
In,
guy.
in a non-philosophical, informal, not related to any form of fallacy, you can call it begging the question if you want to, Lemon, if that makes you happy.
Can I say something quick? I both agree with Stacy and disagree with Stacy at the same time. A doctor can diagnose cancer by evidence of other people having the same type of things, tumors in their head. However, if the doctor steps over bounds and says, you got this cancer from eating corn, then I agree with Stacy. That would be begging the question.
That's what I was trying to do. It wasn't saying that, brother, that happened. I'm saying if that scenario was to happen, that would be begging the question. All I'm trying to say. You wanted my definition.
I'm not sure that would be begging the question.
That's false assumption. I don't know.
It's a false assumption, but it's not begging the question.
However, if the doctor has evidence that it was from corn because other people who ate corn, a lot of corn, and this form of cancer came from corn, then he would have evidence that your brother ate corn and it gave him cancer.
Yes.
Or at least a good possibility that the corn caused the cancer.
Yeah, it would be.
And with begging the question, if there's something that we're missing that we got to look into, we're going to have to make the case with proof, and be persuasive and show them as much as we can, just in case we're missing something with begging the answer and begging the question.
Wait a
answer? Okay, explain that one to me.
Well, with the vaccine example, we said that vaccines can't cause autism because they're this beneficial boon to humanity. We will not look in that area. With gravity, we have to have gravity pulling into this Neoplatonic ball. We cannot have any sort of cosmology, electric universe,
give me a bunch of broken
that
examples.
does not include this gravity presupposition. It's begging the answer and begging the question.
I asked for you to define begging the answer, not give me a bunch of broken examples. Can you define begging the answer?
Begging the answer, I would call begging the answer similar to begging the question, in that the answer has to come from this very predefined set of axioms, paradigm. It has to come from this set of answers. We can't step outside the box to find another answer. The answer has to come from here. It's the same with atheism. Atheism says this is a materialistic box, no spirit, nothing that we can't catalog. This is the answer that you have to get.
Let's focus on what you said. Don't bury it beneath your dumb things that you add on about atheism and materialism and all that. So
it has to come from this specific box.
Don't try to bury it by saying things like begging the answer is only choosing from a very select menu. Now explain to me how
there's a solution outside the box. Yes, if there's a solution outside the box, yes, it's begging the answer from this specific set.
So you've invented a term, begging the answer, and you've designed it in such a way to where it has no connection with begging the question.
Begging the answer would be the answer has to come from this set. It's similar to begging the question in that you have a specific answer in mind when you're asking this question. What is this deadly germ that is inside of people causing them to die?
No, stop right there.
You've already begged the question by calling it a deadly germ.
Yeah, science is induction, which is inherently fallacious, begging the question. It is what it is.
No,
that doesn't mean
does not beg
science, but it's begging the question.
All germs are deadly.
The fact that you think induction is begging the question is so far left field. I don't even know where to start with. At best,
are all germs deadly?
At best, you could argue that you could that you could take induction and use it fallaciously in such a way that you come up with the fallacy of induction. But it's simply just wrong to say that induction is begging the question. Now, you can misuse induction and beg the question using an inductive method, but induction inherently is not begging the question.
If you say you died from a deadly germ, that's begging the question. You don't get any new information, and calling it as a persuasive argument is just silly. That's why it's a fallacy.
Well, I think you guys are right that you, and what you seem to be implying that, we can get good science with this stuff anyway. That's not really the case. The only thing is, it's a reminder that we have a certain paradigm of looking at the information. And sometimes based off of the way we've been schooled in these paradigms, we beg questions and we beg answers based off of that paradigm when there's an answer outside of those paradigms. That's what makes induction inherently fallacious, since we're limited humans.
Well, no,
We don't have
because
access to all paradigms, all answers, and all questions. And so it's a reminder that this can be a little fallacious, and just in case, look outside of the paradigm.
yeah, the problem is with that argument, Lemon, is that we have the set of shit we know and the set of shit that we don't know. So we have an experiment, and it points to something we don't know. So that would be the first thing. So we falsified our hypothesis because it's not within the set of questions that we ask, and therefore it's now outside it. So there are three categories, which is we falsified, we have a tentative answer, or we don't know.
Okay, do we bring it back to the paradigm that we know, kind of in a begging the question answer sort of way, back to the answers that we already know and the questions we're already familiar with? Or do we say, I've never seen this before, I need a new paradigm now to even interpret this? Do we just junk the old paradigm and go with something new, a combination therein? Do we twist it to match our own paradigm? These are tough questions.
Hang on, can you not say paradigm?
Well, we're not assuming a paradigm. You're basically saying that it's not the fact that we can't use science, it's that it could be something that is completely supernatural and we can't test for it.
Well, with the ether, I see waves of light with the Aries patterns. I've seen a river, I've seen a drop in the pond. I'm going to beg the question and the answer and say, light's probably coming from a waving, undulating ether that's similar to that river. That's just the way that I'm going to, be brought up. If I am begging the question too much and missing things,
you're making an assumption on inadequate evidence. That's what I would say. You're not begging the question. Yeah.
That's a salad with.
I understand how you guys get this wrong so much. It just has
salad.
to have the premise presupposed in the conclusion.
Yeah, Lemon thinks
the example of the deadly germ. If he died because of the deadly germ, then you're presupposing the premise of him dying was because of a deadly germ. Well, no, it's a deadly germ. It's not a valid argument, because it can be a valid argument, but it's not a persuasive argument. You need to go deeper. You need to be more specific.
Yeah, that would be a tautology.
Yeah, and a tautology is true, but it doesn't give us useful information to help guide our action or help specifically zero in on something more. It doesn't give us a state to go forward with, like blue is blue. That doesn't tell us anything. It's just, like you said, a tautology that's true but useless. It doesn't tell us what to do with the blue thing. It doesn't give us propositions to help discover other things. It's just blue is blue. It just kind of stops.
It tells you to ask more questions.
I would like to point out the flaw in one of Lemon's arguments. Pythagoras was born before Plato, and he believed the earth was round. Or the people in Pythagoras, they all believed the earth was round. So, there were people before Plato, so just to say Neoplatism is stupid, because there were people before Plato who believed the earth was round. Now, I'm not saying everybody did, but there were people who did.
Well, Neoplatonism was trying to basically.
He's referring to Neoplatonism as an early Christian philosophical branch that took aspects from different and amalgamated a philosophical thought process out of it. One of the things that came over with that was apparently around his mind.
Yeah, it basically was the unification of all of the logical schools coming out of Greece and Rome and all that stuff into a Neoplatonism. Platonism, Neoplatonism, that sort of thing. Basically, it elevates man's logic and reason over divine revelation from a non-man source, like, say, God. It basically elevates man and his reason as God instead, in a sort of humanism.
And actually, are you saying it was logical?
It actually doesn't even do that. It separates the unreasonable, that which man doesn't have, versus reason which does have. It doesn't elevate man above God. It just gives man his own set of reasoning.
Puts everything on the table.
I would like to point out that Plato actually believed in God and believed that God gave him logic.
I'd like to point out Mayo keeps making assertions he has no.
Stoicism, something that sounds like proto-atheism, materialism. There were other schools in that world, the Greek-Roman world, that were synthesized in
What do you mean,
Neoplatonism, along with
proto-atheism?
even Christianity. So, a lot of Christians nowadays are Neoplatonists in that they're more like, philosophers, as opposed to people that are humbly submitting to the revelation of, God and going by that, as opposed to their own logical reason and rational faculty mixed with,
So I have to
Greek
wait till
thought or
God
whatever.
teaches me about radio so I can build a radio or how to build a car. Do I have to wait for God to do that? I'm not sure what you're driving at there.
Well, Moya,
Depends
really
on what you do with
Did
that
that
radio
make
thing.
sense? Did that make
Moya, if
sense
you really
to
want to be
anyone?
specific with it,
No.
if you really want to
no.
be specific with it, Lemon is telling you that God's not going to say that God shouldn't have to tell you about science. Instead, you should listen to his words, and he'll teach you how to enslave your brother forever.
Oh, is that what you're saying? That's okay.
But the thing is, these Neoplatonic Christians elevate their own reasoning above God when they get so stuck in philosophy, apart from what God actually said. They're more Neoplatonic philosophers than they are humble, lambs and humble, servants of the Most High God. That's something different.
Right. So, Lemon, should I be able to if I give one of my slaves who's going to come out of bondage a wife, and he uses to leave the wife, should I be able to make him my slave forever?
That's Levitical. That's the old covenant. Jesus Christ came with the new covenant. All that stuff's done away with.
That's right. God changed his mind.
All that stuff is done away with. You follow Jesus Christ, and he'll show you the rest of the way anyway.
Those rules
You're roboting.
are built in the hell. Stay good,
Bro.
He's roboting, but it sounds like you're trying to put Christians under the old law and get them to forget about Jesus. Jesus was the point of all that. So if you're trying to take people away from Jesus, that's going to be a little antichrist.
Yeah, Lemon, you don't want to read Peter. You don't want to read Peter then.
LemonBird, can you not follow the Ten Commandments?
Jesus was a dude possessed by a demon.
The Ten Commandments, that shows us God's will. If we're in God's will, I would say no.
But that's Old Testament, though.
That's the old law. That's part of the law.
Are you talking about the 10 laws that were given in the 10 Commandments, or the laws for the nation of Israel? Because there's like two sets of laws. The laws for the specific nation of Israel can't be followed by us anyway, because we don't even have a temple. We don't have a Levitical priesthood, because that would require genealogy back to the tribe of Levi. We don't have any genealogical records to prove anybody is from that tribe anyway. Even if we wanted to do so, it's impossible to follow the old law, even if we wanted for the nation of Israel anyway. That's done away with. That's gone.
This is from the family of Adam.
What you're saying doesn't make sense because
you're saying it.
The Ten Commandments were part of that law.
But the Ten Commandments were, at least the way that I was told, was for all people in all time. The 613 whatever laws for the nation were civil laws for a specific nation at a specific point in time. If you want to be part of that nation needs to be reconstructed, because right now that nation no longer really exists.
Well, so then murder's okay.
Tribes are they're
it's written in the same set of laws.
But Moyok, he's conflating the 600 for the Ten Commandments. As far as I was told, it's two
sets of laws. The laws for all humanity in all time versus the civil laws for a particular nation in a particular set of
But weren't they all given at the same time? How do you differentiate?
I would need to look into that. I don't know.
Go and read Genesis then.
When Moses brought the children of Israel out of Egypt, they were in the land where Moses went to the mountain and received the Ten Commandments. Were the Ten Commandments addressed to everybody on earth at that time, or were they addressed to the people Moses brought out of Egypt?
That the way they justify it is there appears to have been a law that was unwritten. Cain and Abel Cain was still a murderer of Abel, even though the stuff wasn't written down by the nation of the Hebrews with Abraham in tablets. It was known that murder was wrong anyway. So that part of the Ten Commandments was just God, putting down what, mankind already knew on some level anyway, that adultery was wrong, that murder was wrong, that thievery was wrong, whether or not it was written down.
Lemon,
what the hell?
What do you think about 5G?
Outside the
Basically,
You're going into another topic. Somebody else is talking. And do your
the Ten
conspiracy
Commandments.
questionnaire later. Anyway, people already knew that murder was wrong, and they already knew that adultery was wrong, whether or not it was written on tablets. It was just codified.
The
Did
Ten
anyone
Commandments is just saying be kind to your neighbor.
receive the Ten Commandments? Did any
But-
culture outside the children of Israel receive the Ten Commandments? Yes or no?
It's implied with Cain and Abel. Cain killed his brother Abel, and it was implied in the Bible that it was wrong. He was marked and he had to run.
Someone
as in,
stop him.
people knew it was wrong and he was going to be persecuted.
Any person in this room besides LemonBird, even an atheist, can answer this question. So, Brenda, the children of Israel, when they came out of Egypt and received the Ten Commandments, were those Ten Commandments made for the children of Israel or for the rest of the nations?
They're made for all the nations. That's what I was always taught.
That's what I was taught too, that the Ten Commandments were for everybody, and that everybody knew that murder was wrong. But if you're in another nation, at a temple, you're not going to follow the temple dietary laws on the civil level. That's the difference between the civil law and the universal law.
Outside, did any nation outside the Jews or the Israelites know that Moses received the Ten Commandments? Yes or no?
I guess it would depend on how much contact they have with him. As far as I can tell, no.
No, they didn't.
Hey, Lemon, have you ever seen the show on Netflix, Lucifer?
I've heard of it.
I honestly, you should watch it. It's pretty fucking decent, not gonna lie. It's got Cain, it's got everyone, and honestly, it's a pretty good fucking show. Some spots are pretty damn corny, but yeah, no, watch Lucifer on Netflix. It's not that bad.
I'll watch a series if it's got at least 5+ seasons. Usually, if it's got 5+ seasons, it's pretty good.
I think it's at 3 or 4.
It's not.
It's going into season 6.
It's not biblical though.
Oh, it's like.
What did God do to
It's like a
distribute
drama.
these 10 Commandments that were for all nations around the world?
He put them on tablets.
He gave them to the Jews, and then what? How did he distribute it throughout the world?
The world already knew that murder was wrong and everything. I wrote the law.
Then what's the point of having these 10 Commandments on a stone?
Man erases it from his heart by sin and hardens his heart. That's man.
Okay, but you can't argue both ways, Lemon. You can't have it and then say you don't need it and say all this shit. You're contradicting yourself, as I'm sure you're well aware. Now,
There's
if these
no
things were so
contradiction.
damned important and for all nations, why were they not given to all nations?
It's not important that man follow the law
There is
like
an
that.
absolute
It's important is that we
contradiction.
have a relationship with God, and the rest of the stuff will be taken care of anyway.
Okay, then, so
there's
it
no
doesn't
contradiction
matter.
on that level.
No, you just said it
Plus,
doesn't
our
matter
fathers
then.
took us away from God, probably at the Tower of Babel, and turned us toward other gods, fables, and myths and perversions of the original history. Anyway, it is what it is.
Did you get your answer, Curved?
No answer.
Nice bullshit monologue. I like it, Lemon.
My God.
Deflection.
They took us away from
Dodging
God,
the
and now
question.
we're in apostasy. So now we've
Hang on,
forgotten about
hang
God,
on.
and now we need a reminder.
Which God?
It is what it is.
Which God?
This is a begging the wrench fallacy, Lemon.
Begging the wretch? Really?
If you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge anything. So I should throw a wrench at you to see.
Matrix.
Dodgeball, the movie.
Can you dodge a
Oh,
wrench,
jeez,
boy?
he doesn't even know the tautology.